morning. It is Monday, October 19th, 2015. This is the morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, an Israeli soldier is murdered in a terror attack in Beersheba, and an asylum seeker is murdered as well, after police and bystanders mistake him for a terrorist as the wave of violence in Israel spirals out of control. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has arrived in Turkey to discuss the refugee crisis with Turkish President Erdogan. And later on the show, something slightly lighter in all this mayhem. After Milan, Paris, and London, it is Tel Aviv's turn to host its own Fashion Week. Good morning, I'm Yael Aviv, and we begin today in Israel, where the wave of attacks on citizens, the fear and the violence are spiraling out of control. Despite increased police and military presence around the country, an Israeli soldier, 19-year-old Sergeant Omri Levy from Sdeh Chemed, was killed, murdered last night, and 11 others were wounded in a shooting at a central bus station in the southern Israeli city of Beersheba. An Eritrean asylum seeker was shot on the scene as police mistook him for one of the terrorists as well. He was later reportedly, and I'm stressing reportedly, beaten to death by an angry crowd. And thus, the violence in Israel has stepped up a notch on all levels. A terror attack using live ammunition and the resounding fear of civilian vigilantes who take matters into their own hands and kill an innocent man. Specifically, according to police, when we're looking at Beersheba, the identity of the terrorist is currently being ascertained. But the attack in Beersheba, according to the police, began when the terrorist entered the central bus station in the city, armed with a handgun, and began shooting at passers-by. His first victim was a soldier, who he killed and then stole his rifle and began using it to fire on other people. The attacker managed to exit the building, but was shot dead by police officers. One of the injured in the attack was a migrant from Eritrea, as we mentioned, who a security officer mistakenly took for a second assailant and shot him in the legs. Presumably later on, again, as we said, reportedly, he was beaten by the crowd. Yesterday's attack came as Israel is continuing to put in place measures to try to stop the wave of violence targeting its citizens. In addition to placing checkpoints across the east part of Jerusalem, the cabinet approved police officers to search a person's body, clothing, and belongings for weapons without probable cause in areas that are prone to violent incidents. That is according to the Israeli government. To discuss the latest developments and sadly this escalations, we're joined in studio by I-24 News correspondent, diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Good morning to you. With us, of course, I-24 News correspondent also Mohammed Al-Qasim. Good morning to you. Let's first turn straight to Israeli police chief spokesperson Miki Rosenfeld, who is standing by on the phone to try and figure out all that transpired yesterday in Beersheba. Miki Rosenfeld of the Israeli police, good morning to you. Beersheba, at this point, do we have any information about the terrorist that perpetrated the attack yesterday in the bus station in Beersheba?
What we've confirmed until now is that terrorist attack took place just after 7:30 yesterday evening, central bus station, which was packed with civilians. At the moment, the investigation is continuing to look into the identity of that terrorist himself. But we know he worked on his own. He targeted immediately the soldier. He shot and killed the soldier almost at point-blank range, and then continued opening fire at innocent people and civilians. A police fast unit that responded at the scene immediately shot and killed the suspect. However, as a result of that terrorist attack, one Israeli soldier was killed, and at least 9 were taken to hospital. Look, it's very important to put things into proportion and understand. There was a misidentity of the Iranian man. He was shot once by a security guard, as far as we know until now. Police units and police officers that were at the scene stood around the man and protected him. But unfortunately, there were a number of civilians who did hit him. That's something that we're looking into.
Now, Miki, I know you started saying this actually without me asking, and I'm going to give you the name of the Eritrean. He was Haftum Zarhum, 29 years old, supposedly, from Eritrea, an asylum seeker, migrant, whichever way you want to call it. I want to ask you again, because you're running fast, and I know that this is a very touchy issue when it comes to, there were 2 killed on the scene, and of course the terrorist that was subdued. But the Eritrean migrant asylum seeker worker shot in the leg by the police officers, correct?
Not by a police officer, by a private security guard from the central bus station.
Reportedly, as far as we know right now, because I'm sure the police is investigating it, and the man died of his wounds later in the night. What happened then?
What we know is that the train man was shot. After that, and you can see that also in the CCTV footage, which is something that we've examined, is that police officers arrived at the scene, prevented the anger from the people that were around from hitting him. We know he was hit a number of times. That was also seen in CCTV footage. He was taken to hospital in serious condition as far as we confirmed. Overnight, he passed away from his wounds. What is important to emphasize is, number one, the seriousness of the attack which took place, which was, in fact, the terrorists succeeded in grabbing hold of the M16 and then using a much more powerful weapon. The police response, the Special Patrol Unit, arrived at the scene and shot and killed the terrorists. Heightened security continued in Jerusalem also yesterday, which was relatively quiet without any major incidents or attacks. But there was no intelligence explaining or giving us any idea that there was going to be a terrorist attack in Beersheba.
No intelligence whatsoever. I mean, and is that something that we're looking at, that it seems to be part and parcel of the wave of attacks that Israel is suffering?
In this specific wave of attacks, we're talking about lone wolves, we're talking about individuals, we're talking about Israeli Arabs who live within our society, and unfortunately, due to the incitement and brainwashing them, they are now and have done, and that's what we've seen over the last week and a half, even more, have taken to the streets and carried out deadly attacks. That's why the response and the prevention methods have, in fact, become higher and greater day to day. Also in Jerusalem over the last couple of days as well, there were extra security measures that have been implemented, including the number of different roadblocks and extra walls that were set up in specific areas. All that is part of the ongoing security measures to prevent and respond and deal with the wave of attacks that, unfortunately, we're going through at the moment.
And with the wave of attacks, which is horrific, and we're seeing the security measures, but as you yourself, Mickey, said, lone wolves, it's very hard to gather intel on that, in that respect. That said, is the police, I want to ask you a few more questions, is the police putting in place also, when it comes to these horrific terror attacks, but after the fact, because what we saw yesterday with Haftum Zarhum, after Omri Levy, that's a 19-year-old soldier that was killed by a terrorist, we saw also the anger of Israeli citizens beating an innocent man as well. Is there any kind of plan to be put in place to try also to prevent angry crowds after an attack? Because this seems to put a lot of work on the police in many ways.
Well, first of all, the response at the scene was very quick and very fast. The area was evacuated, the building was searched to prevent and make sure there was no immediate threat and danger for any further terrorists. Police units that arrived on the scene also made sure that the area was cordoned off inside. Those that had to be taken to hospital were immediately treated. Others that were at the scene were examined. And that is a standard procedure in order to deal with a major situation which took place. But we're continuing with security methods and all preventions that we're doing at the moment. I can confirm that we have also made arrests and we're carrying out and continuing police operations both across the country to find potential terrorists. But just to give you an example, in the Israeli Arab population of 200,000 that are living in Jerusalem and are part of our society and are coming in for work and are coming into hospitals every day.
Exactly.
And what we saw last week is the Bezek worker all of a sudden decides to carry out attacks. It's very difficult to prevent, and that's why the response has to be fast and effective.
No, fast and effective, and it's very hard to combat. Indeed. So in addition to Jerusalem, as you mentioned, Mickey, because there are barricades being put up around the Arab neighborhoods, but in addition to Jerusalem, is there any, I mean, is the police looking to fortify or try and do something different in the remaining cities of Israel, of the greater Israel, so to speak?
Look, all central bus stations and central train stations, heightened security is continuing. Different units will be mobilized in different areas. We've also mapped out the larger cities, the major cities, where we've heightened security as well. You'll see police officers all around in the different areas. It's important that members of the public notify police officers, which has been taking place over the last week or two, of any individuals who look suspicious, to notify our unit. Security will continue as long as necessary. We're going through a wave of attacks, but it's very important to put things into proportion. Security will continue as long as necessary.
Putting things into proportion, I think, is the leading line from that. Mickey Rosenfeld of the Israeli police, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to go straight live to Jerusalem right now, where we're joined by I-24 News correspondent Michal Divon. Michal, good morning to you. You are in Jerusalem. Clearly, as we've just spoken to the police, there's a lot of heightened security, barricades put in place. On the way in, is the city empty, and how much security? What are the security measures that are being implemented in? So. Okay, sadly, we have lost connections with Jerusalem. Let's turn to Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent. Security measures in Jerusalem approved by the cabinet. What are we looking at?
Well, there haven't been any new measures approved in the past few days. The dramatic development of yesterday was that the first barrier was so-called put in East Jerusalem. But we should correct, this isn't a follow-up of any recent cabinet decision. This is actually a follow-up of a previous cabinet decision from last month. The prime minister reportedly didn't even know about it. And yesterday there was a very heated cabinet meeting on this topic. The security cabinet, Israeli security cabinet met. They were supposed to be discussing the Palestinian incitement and the Islamic movement, but most of the meeting was dominated by this, by the fact that Israeli ministers, cabinet ministers, discovered yesterday that Jerusalem is being divided, as we have heard from many right-wing ministers. So apparently, this was done months ago, weeks ago, decided weeks ago by the Jerusalem municipality, together with the Interior Security Ministry, together.
Before this wave
even began, but Netanyahu does understand that this has grave political implications, so he ordered not to put any more barriers. That will be the last barrier from that kind that we will be seeing in the upcoming days, unless something dramatic else happens. But at this point, Netanyahu has ordered to halt the deployment of these barriers. This will be only one barrier. We have to understand that from Netanyahu's point of view, a man who was elected and has been preaching that United Jerusalem, suddenly he needs to deal with the fact that reality isn't exactly as he has been describing it, and this causes him a lot of embarrassment.
I know, a lot of embarrassment, and let's go live now to I-24 News' Michal Livon, who is in Jerusalem, the city where, as Tal Shalev mentioned, barriers are being put up. Major security in place. Michal, driving into the city this morning, what does it feel like? And in terms of security, what do we know has been implemented other than that in Jerusalem?
Good morning. Yes, as you mentioned, security is definitely being boosted in the city of Jerusalem. We're standing here behind me. You can see the Palestinian neighborhood of Issawiyah. Now, before I answer all their questions, I'd like to reflect the scene that we witnessed here this morning. School children from high school to middle school passed through this area. We're standing actually behind me is Issawiyah, but in front of me is the Hebrew University. And in order for all of the citizens, actually the residents of Issawiyah, to pass into this area, to go down to East Jerusalem to where they're studying, they have to pass a checkpoint that has been erected here, and there's actually only one exit from the village. So, as you can imagine, a big delay for the residents living in Issawiyah. We've seen many different security posts being erected across the city. Yesterday, as you mentioned, the army deployed an extra 300 troops to help boost security on public transportation here in Jerusalem. We haven't seen public transportation being with security on board, but we are seeing all these additional posts around the University of Jerusalem, and on the way here, of course, much police presence is around. As you also mentioned yesterday, the bill was passed to authorize searches on any individual, even if there isn't a suspicion of a weapon being carried. And this, of course, is allowing security forces and giving them almost 100% authority to search anyone who's passing. So entire neighborhoods are, of course, being affected by this. We're now starting the third week of this current wave of violence, and Jerusalem is one of the cities where you feel this most, because it's a mixed city, because the proximity of citizens, both Israeli and Palestinian residents, is so close. The opportunity and probability of attacks in this area is, of course, higher, and therefore is very tense, and security is on high alert here. This morning, we're still seeing residents moving from east to west Jerusalem. Yes, Yael.
No, definitely. Michal Divon also with us this morning from Jerusalem. I want to thank you for that. We will be back in Jerusalem. Mohammed Al-Qasim with us in studio because we're going to touch on this a little bit. And this is a very busy, intense, messy morning with a variety of locations. Even Mickey Rosenfeld, the Israeli police chief, has said something that after I spoke to many Israeli politicians, let's not exaggerate. I spoke to some Israeli politicians like Yair Lapid who said, it's not lone wolf, it's hatred. Who are these kids? 80% of them. We don't know what happened yesterday in Beersheba. There are some reports it's a kid from Shuafat. We don't know. We don't have the profile of yesterday's terrorists. But 80% of the people perpetrating these attacks are coming from the neighborhoods of East Jerusalem. Why?
Well, when you look at the lives that these kids live in East Jerusalem, you not to justify their acts, but you have to understand what gets them to this point. They live in a very crowded areas. They have there is lack of hope, frustration, despair, lack of hope, and lack of optimism for the future. They see nothing with their. They're not even considered citizens, and Palestinians are not citizens of Israel in Jerusalem, and they're not citizens of any country.
I was about to ask, because there are people who will argue that they have what they call in Israel the blue ID card. They have an ID card that enables them to work within Israel, and you see a lot of frustrations from Israeli civilians. You see it in social networks and whatnot. Of they have the ability to work and they have a better life, etc., etc.
They have the freedom to move about within Israel and Jerusalem. They have the ability to work. But when you have to have a precondition of serving in the army, when you have to have a precondition of having a certain level of experience and work and education, where are you going to go get work? And what kind of a job are you going to get? The high rate of unemployment among Palestinians in Jerusalem is so high that it's just, most people, they can't even afford to have a decent life. So all these reasons put together between the diplomatic side and the economic side and the social issues that they're facing just gives these people, there is no reason for them. They wake up one morning and they say, that's it. I'm just can't live like this anymore.
It's that frustration. And Tal Shalev, I know you're itching. I want to ask you something before that. I want us to go to Beersheba because if we said that 80% are coming out of the Jerusalem neighborhoods, but the attacks are spiraling around the country, there's also a reaction that we saw yesterday that is terrifying. First, let's go to Tal Heinrich, I-24 News contributor, correspondent, standing by in Beersheba. We were just discussing Jerusalem, but Beersheba is the location of the morning where a terrible attack was perpetrated yesterday. We don't have specific details about the assailant, but you were there at the bus stations. Did you get a chance to speak to people from Beersheba? Because we saw, firstly, a terrible attack that killed a 19-year-old and murdered a 19-year-old soldier named Omri Levy, but also then we saw the attack of civilians on an asylum seeker. Did you have a chance to speak to people in Beersheba this morning about what transpired yesterday?
Yes, Yael, of course. This definitely doesn't feel like a normal, regular, routine morning here at the central bus terminal in Beersheba. I've spoken to some of the shop owners because, this is the discourse that is taking place here this morning. What you think regarding this shooting. An owner of an electricity store just nearby here told me that he was here yesterday and he heard the shooting, he heard a gunfire, and he ran straight to the wounded soldier, and then after he saw the Eritrean citizen laying on the floor, and he tells me, but I don't judge the officer who was aiming towards him because we can't judge people at this situation. And also another person told me who works at the bakery just a few meters away that this Eritrean guy, I don't know if it's true, if it's accurate, or it's just a rumor that he bought food at his store just before this happened. There's just an hour before this whole scene started, happen here. So it's everybody, exactly.
I think it goes to show that Tal Heinrich, you're with us in Beersheba. It goes to show the fear that transpires around in those locations. Behind you, we see also still the bus stations is not completely fixed, so to speak, but it's bustling this morning. People going in and out. Indeed, Tal. Business as usual in that bus station this morning.
It's still. Yes. Yes, but it's still early in the morning, so it's not as packed as it was last night, I would assume, with a lot of people who came here. But what you do see is people stopping by, passers-by taking pictures of the broken glass here behind me, of the scene a few meters away where the gun battle took place. And also, you know, you can definitely feel the enhanced presence of the security forces, also soldiers, but police officers that are patrolling around here. What you don't see at the entrance is an X-ray scanning machine yet. This is what they don't have here yet. Maybe this will be the next level of security.
Maybe the next level of security. I'm wondering if people are asking for that. Tal Heinrich from Beersheva, I want to thank you for being with us. But we're going to go back to the profile of these attackers. Tal Shalev with us in studio. As I said to Mohammed Al-Qassim before, Israeli politicians have a hard time saying these are lone wolf attack, the whole story of incitement. Is there anything else in play that Benjamin Netanyahu can do when it comes to trying to stop, security measure-wise, this wave of terror that, you know, he's looking with the security cabinet to do anything else to try and stop what is going on right now? I mean,
well, I think that it would be more precise to say that the Israeli politicians do understand that they do acknowledge these are lone wolf attackers, but they are not. But when they speak, their talking points are about incitements.
Right.
And there is some justice to that talking point. This is more a talking point that is appealing to the international community to try and tone down some of the rhetoric that has been heard in the past few weeks. But no, the truth is that Netanyahu himself knows that there's not much that he can do besides try and restore the security and the calm of his citizens. And he has been saying this. He has been saying on the record, this will take time. This could take time. This is something. And if we go back to previous intifadas, specifically the 2000 intifada, this is something that will be built and it all depends on civilian vigilance, I think. The Israeli public... the Israeli public knows how, it does know, it has been through difficult times like this. There is no way, and I think the Israeli public is also starting to understand this, there's no real way to protect yourself from all of this. What I feel is the most frightening, I think, concerning thing is that the spiral of violence is so quick, and it has to do with the iPhone, it has to do with social media. And someone yesterday tweeted, thank God that in 2001 and 2002, when buses were blowing up, we did not have such immediate Facebook to all these visuals, these violent visuals.
Snuff videos.
Snuff videos, and not even snuff, they just go viral. And this spreads the violence and also spreads the fear.
It spreads the fear, and as we saw today. But Mohammed Al-Qassim still with me in studio, and both you and I are interested to hear what, from Jerusalem, whoever is joining us right now is Dr. Simon Perry, to speak about this profile of attackers that, as Tal Shalev mentioned, is frightening the Israeli public so much. With us from Jerusalem right now is Dr. Simon Perry, a former police intelligence officer and co-director of the Program of Policing and Homeland Security Institute of Criminology at Hebrew University. You are currently conducting extensive research on lone wolf attackers, which are frightening the Israeli public very, very much, but also how to combat them. You're doing that for the European Union. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Mohammed Al-Qassim in studio before, but these young kids seem to be, I don't want to say that there is no incitement, but frustrated to the point, and am I correct in saying this, that they see no future other than just going out with a knife and attacking innocent civilians? Would you say that that is the case?
I don't think that we need to look at this phenomena, the new phenomena. I mean, we had Jews being stabbed 20 years before there was a state. What we're going through now is actually a peak of lone wolf attacks. And we've been studying this phenomena for European Union grant, a prime grant, and we're trying to learn what makes suicide, lone wolf attacks go out and by themselves initiate attacks against
and what have you come up with
and other people.
And what have you come up with? And what is, you know, from that research?
Actually, what we see is that there's no specific profile for lone wolf attackers. So we have been studying lone wolf attackers that do run-over attacks using cars that they get from work. We've studied, we are studying actually lone wolf stabbers and lone wolf shooters. And we can see that we can't actually come up with a clear profile that we can say this is the one profile that if we identify an individual, we will find the lone lone wolf.
Oh, wait.
But we do see some interesting findings. For example, we used to think that lone wolf is a very one-moment decision to go out and do it, and we can see that many of the lone wolves actually do plan the activity, and there's a trigger that takes them out to attack. And when we talk about the incitement, we are talking about actually the trigger.
Yeah, but they're not
So
part of
you
an
have
organization. But
young women.
but Professor Perry, they're not part of an organization. Isn't that something that interlaces it at all of them? That they're lone wolf and they're not going out. Nobody sends them out, so it seems. Would you agree that that's the case? They're not being sent out. They wake up in the morning and they basically are going out on their own volition. Can we say that that's the case?
Okay, so no, we're not talking about someone that wakes up in the morning and decides to be a lone wolf regularly. So what we are saying is that A, they're not connected to organization as far as there's no organization that tells them, get up, do A, B, C. So no, that's their own initiation. But on the other hand, they are influenced by incitement, and that the incitement is actually kind of a trigger. So you have an individual that is in the verge of making a decision to do some kind of an act, and you need a trigger that will send him out to the streets.
Incitement or a Facebook viral video.
We see sometimes that.
No, that entirely so.
Exactly.
I want to if you go and you look at it specifically, and Professor Perry, I want to thank you because we have very limited time, but that was quite enlightening in that respect. Really quickly, Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent, diplomatic moves that are on the way in terms of trying to stop with. We know that Netanyahu is on his way to Germany. Maybe.
Netanyahu is presumably on his way, expected to go to Germany later this week, expected to meet with Merkel and with Secretary Kerry, who will also be meeting President Abbas later this week, probably in Jordan. Jordan is also putting a lot of pressure on Abbas. There might be a meeting between King Abdallah and President Abbas. And the French, of course, are Paris is trying to initiate a UN Security Council resolution, which is enraging Jerusalem. And Jerusalem has actually summoned the ambassador for a protest today. Israel is not very satisfied with the attempts to internationalize the conflict.
Now, Mohammed Al-Qassim still with me in studio. I'm sorry, it's a quick question to you. Mahmoud Abbas, can he even afford to go and just have a press photo op with the Israeli Prime Minister?
Absolutely not. I think he will be signing his death certificate if he'll do so without any substantial forward movement of the peace process. Abbas is not going to Jordan or anywhere to meet with Netanyahu because it's just going to backfire and it'll be the end for him. And
in terms of Netanyahu,
as it is, he's very unpopular, and as it is, he's actually looked at very negatively in the Palestinian.
In terms of popularity, sinking in this respect.
Big time.
Netanyahu? Same. Okay. Sadly, we're not supplying any answers or hope at this point. As we said, a morning of mayhem, and a night of mayhem in Israel and the West Bank when it comes to violence that is spiraling out of control. When we get back, we're going to take a look at refugees coming out of Europe and actually what's going on that story. Merkel in Turkey meeting with Erdogan. Do stay with us now, the news. Welcome back. I-24 News Morning Edition, the place you should be on this October 18th. Thank you very much, Ami Kaufman, the man who keeps me honest when it comes to the date, up to date, and all the news that we need to know while scanning all the headlines. Yes.
Other things happening in Israel, besides what we talked about before, the president of Georgia
violence. Yes.
is here visiting Israel. His name is Georgi Margvelashvili. I hope I pronounced that one correct.
Beautiful. No, Tal Shalev
here with
gave
his
us
wife.
the lecture before.
Tal Shalev actually had a chance to interview him, and
okay.
I think we have a few sound bites from him.
Let's have a listen. That's Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent with the president of Georgia, Margvelashvili. Let's have a listen.
When you look at what happened to Ukraine in the past 2 years, are you concerned that a similar move could happen to you, or do you feel that you have enough Western support to stand up to these kinds of phenomena of Russian aggression?
What happened to Ukraine in the last 2 years actually is what happened to Georgia in 2008. It is what has been happening on Georgian soil for many years, because this hybrid war that we have seen in Ukraine has been happening in Georgia in 90s. And unfortunately, our Russian neighbors were involved in these activities. In 2008, Russian regular military forces have occupied part of my territory. We feel that we are strong in our principles and in our dedication to keep our country safe and united. And of course, we mainly depend on ourselves, on our dedication. Let me tell you that we have been living in this place for the last 3,000 years. And we've maintained our statehoods with very big empires that were fighting in these territories. So we have experience of defending our land for 3,000 years and creating and keeping statehood strong. So we depend on ourselves, and of course we depend on our allies, and we believe that our allies should be standing strong together with us.
The I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev in an exclusive interview with the president of Georgia, Georgi Margvelashvili. I think what's fascinating here, because she asked the right question, and that is, you know, when countries in and around, you know, that Eastern Bloc are looking at Russia and what it's done in the past, you know...
Are they shivering with...
Are they shivering? I mean, it's one thing about Georgia is that they're going to try and go, I think, to the International Court of...
ICC?
To the ICC against Russia. Now, I don't think that's going to help them. A war that was, you know, quite messy and bloody in 2008, where you saw the might, and for the sake of full disclosure and to pat myself on the shoulder, I covered it on the ground. And it was fascinating to see how basically the Russians, when they decided to go in, it was just, there was no
bulldozer.
Bulldozer. There was
totally,
no stopping them. They were
yeah.
like tanks and masses and whatnot. And you saw the Georgians with police cars, with little police cars trying, you know, at the entrance to
that was ridiculous.
That was ridiculous in that respect.
Yeah.
But yes, moving along.
Yesterday was what we call Adoption Day, apparently. I just learned that myself. As we can see from this headline from Reuters, the Iran deal is closer to reality as the United States approved some conditional sanction waivers for the Iran deal, though it cautioned that they would not take effect until Tehran has curbed its nuclear program as required under this deal. So yesterday was Adoption Day, which I learned, and in a few months I think there's going to be something called Implementation Day. Right. So yesterday was Adoption Day. So the U.S. did that, and the EU as well. In Brussels, the European Union published legal acts that opened the way for the bloc to lift sanctions if Tehran also meets the conditions that you know, that are tied to that landmark nuclear deal.
Well, it's happening.
It's happening. Yeah. Adoption Day. That was yesterday.
Adoption Day. Yes.
Good news coming out from Yemen. Yemen government agrees to have talks with Houthis. I just want to remind you that this war, first of all, started in March. So far, we've had
has been going on.
Has been going on. About over 5,000 people killed. There were some talks in June that collapsed very, very quickly. And now they're saying that they're going to agree to some more talks with the Houthis. So this is great news. And I think, of course, the people in Yemen are looking forward, who are in dire straits, some parts in famine.
Before this conflict
Right, they were the poorest, pretty much the poorest nation in the Middle East, basically. Right. So good news from Yemen, I hope.
Talks. Let's hope that that happens and yields good results. Yes.
Over the weekend, we learned that Argentina's Supreme Court issued warrants for two people from Hezbollah that were maybe connected to the bombing of the Israeli embassy in 1992 that killed 29 people. And now we are learning, this is a headline from today's Haaretz, that Israeli intel led to that, intel from the Mossad that was given to Argentina. This is kind of interesting because the Mossad usually is not very keen on sharing its information, you know, and secrets and how it works. But apparently this is what was done, and it led to these warrants that were issued on Thursday for these two people, Hussein Mohammed Ibrahim Suleiman and Jose Selan Al-Rida. They are believed to be Hezbollah members who may have been connected to this.
Okay. And
what are my two favorite stories, y'all? Do you remember? Do you remember one of my two favorite stories?
Two of your favorites. We've got Volkswagen.
Thank you very much. Oh, you know me so well.
I know you so well.
So these are under the category of the noose is tightening. These two stories. First one, of course, is Volkswagen.
Closely watching. Yes. Okay.
Police raid the Volkswagen headquarters in France. Yesterday, they took computer hardware that were seized in the raids. And this isn't the first raid, by the way. There was a raid in Italy and also a raid in Germany. This is showing that, you know, its legal troubles are pretty much spreading all across Europe. Volkswagen said that it set aside $7.3 billion to deal with this fallout. My guess, that number is probably going to have to go up a bit.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. I'm wondering if Leonardo DiCaprio is the one making the arrests. That was my joke.
Because he's doing the movie.
See, you think I don't listen. See, I listen. Okay.
And lastly, just to finish off, one of my other favorite shows, El Chapo. Looks like the noose is tightening around El Chapo, as we can see from this headline from
that's
Fox.
the movie rights they need to have.
That is going to be a great movie.
Okay, El Chapo flown to Sinaloa Mountains after escaping.
First of all, we have two updates. First of all, we know that he fled to the Sinaloa Mountains, which is basically where he was based before he got caught in 2001. He kind of went back home. That's his area. And we also know that last week, Mexican authorities almost got him, and he was injured. He broke his leg, apparently, and injured his face as well. They were very, very close. Mexican Marines almost got El Chapo. So the noose is tightening around Joaquin Guzman.
Really, El Chapo, I remind you, that's like, there's The Great Escape, the movie, and then there's the sequel in real life, which was his escape.
Those were pictures, by the way, of that mile-long tunnel under his...
that I know that he rode on the motorcycle to get out.
Exactly, yes.
Ami Kaufman, thank you for keeping us honest. You're locked in studio. Chancellor Angela Merkel arrived in Turkey yesterday to seek ways of resolving the migrant crisis plaguing Europe. Merkel met with President Recep Erdogan to discuss how Turkey, one of the first ports of call on the refugees' journey, can help contain the historic flood of people coming from the Middle East. Now, the German Chancellor wants to cement a European deal with Ankara on aid and closer ties in return for help in encouraging refugees there to stay put, rather than try en masse go into greater Europe, so to speak. Merkel has resisted pressure to tighten Germany's border controls and turn away refugees arriving from Austria, even as Germany expects 800,000, that's nearly to 1 million, new arrivals this year alone. Very happy to be joined in studio by I-24 News European correspondent Jonathan Sachadati. Good morning to you. You're gracing us with your presence here in the Middle East. Before we break this down, let's take a look at the following report and discuss.
Is a new frontier shaping up in the European effort to cope with the migration crisis? German Chancellor Angela Merkel arrived in Istanbul today for talks with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu. Merkel's visit comes at a time of uneasy relations between Turkey and other members of the EU. On Friday, the Turkish president said that the European Union had taken too long to realize how important Turkey is to resolving the European migrant crisis, adding that the stability of Europe depends on the stability of Turkey.
Erwarten wir, und das ist ja auch in dem Migrationspapier zwischen der...
There is an agreement on migrants between Turkey and European Union, and this holds true for third countries as well. But of course, visa liberalization and readmission agreements should also go into effect. Another issue is to share the burden.
This week saw neighboring Hungary close its border with Croatia in an effort to block the migrant route to Austria and onward to Germany. The most powerful economy in the EU made promises of accepting exceptionally large numbers of migrants, a move that has turned its neighbors into transit stations for those hoping to escape war and persecution elsewhere. Slovenia, for one, is not wasting any time in preparations.
The government has decided to include the army in helping police. Army personnel and army equipment will be used to secure the state border. It is important that we reinforce the police with army personnel who will provide support with transport and surveillance in border areas.
In Slovenia today, hundreds of migrants are being processed after arriving from Croatia. They were diverted here by Croatian authorities in response to Hungary closing its border with the country. For the ones who made it here, the journey into Europe is underway. But it's difficult to estimate what will happen with 700,000 more migrants estimated to reach Europe's shores from Africa and the Middle East this year.
Let's go first straight to Germany. We're joined by Philip Newman from Berlin. I'm I-24 News contributor. Good morning to you. Philip, I'm asking you when it comes to Merkel specifically. She's actually, I think internationally, she's gaining a lot of kudos and a lot of compliments about being the only European leader that tries to actually open the borders. But even from within already, Merkel and her trip to Turkey right now, from within Germany, she's already facing criticism and actually from political partners in terms of what she's trying to do for the migrants, for the refugees.
Good morning. That's true. Well, at first she got a lot of waves, and everyone was really pleased that she opened the borders and welcomed the refugees. But now she's under enormous pressure within her party and within Germany.
Now, when we're looking at an incident that we saw, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, that the German politician of the base, the political base of Angela Merkel, was being stabbed or she was attacked because she supports some, the rights of refugees or wants, the same agenda. Is that something that, people in Germany are concerned about? Are we looking at this division where, the rise of the right or the anti-refugees, so to speak, is that something that is being talked about in the press?
Yes, of course, it's a big issue in the press. But well, I think the man who stabbed the candidate for the job of the mayor in Cologne is really not typical for what's going on in Germany. There are some marches of some anti-migrant parties in Dresden or in the eastern part of Germany, but such kind of violence you have seen on the weekend in Cologne is not really typical for Germany.
Okay, well, one can only hope so. I want to thank you, Philip Newman of Die Welt, for joining us this morning on I-24 News Morning Edition. Jonathan Sachadati putting you on the spot, I-24 News European correspondent. Angela Merkel, the only one spearheading this thing, traveling to Turkey. What is she trying to do there? I mean, she's going to promise Erdogan something to try and stop the flow of refugees, basically, right? What is she promising him?
Europe's problem is that it has to deal with this enormous number of people moving into the continent, and Merkel is spearheading that, as you say. Correct. So the two ways that it can do that is, one, sharing the burden, as we keep hearing, putting different amounts of refugees in different European countries.
But that's not happening.
And the other one, that's not happening, and the other one is stopping them getting there in the first place, and that's where Turkey comes into play, because Turkey is what lies between Syria and Europe. Right. Of course, Merkel is against Turkey joining the European Union, among many of the reasons.
Turkey, I'm going to stop for a second. I remind everybody that Turkey is also where we saw the body of the young refugee, the horrific story, several weeks ago or several months, dead because of illegal smuggling and what they're going through. Yes.
That's right. And so it can't be, we can't underestimate the argument that says that there is something to be said for stopping the migrants taking these very perilous journeys into Europe and trying to make it better for them in perhaps the refugee camps closer to home, because not necessarily
trying to share the burden, so to speak, with Turkey.
Right. Yes. So what Turkey wants out of this, really, and Merkel is now being forced to discuss these issues, is certain concessions from Europe. Firstly, money. A huge amount of money could be given because Turkey is where there is an enormous number of refugees. If we're looking at Germany and seeing that there are many migrants there, well, we just need to look over to Turkey to see that there are many more. And while Germany may be expecting 1 million before the end of this year, Turkey already has 2.5 million refugees, mostly from Syria. So Turkey needs money for that. But also Turkey is playing this smart, and they want more negotiation about possible accession to the European Union, which is something which is very controversial. Merkel herself
is against that.
Is against that. Just 10 days ago, she spoke out against it, but now she's forced to go there and discuss with them possibilities. One of those, for example, is the idea of Turkish nationals being able to travel visa-free within Europe in the Schengen zone, and that, of course, is something which is in a very small way, just pushing towards Turkey becoming more integrated with Europe. But that's a long way off. Both sides, of course, are playing this for two games. One is to get what they want personally, and the other one is to help the refugees. It must be said that despite all these very complicated and difficult discussions, people do want to help the refugees. It's just that it's not so simple to accept millions and millions of people into a continent.
It's clearly not so simple, but there's one country in Europe, a case in point in Germany, and Merkel, who's trying to do that. Her colleagues, quote unquote, in and around Europe aren't showing any inclination for that.
And there's a good reason, because if we look at Merkel, what's happening other than this stabbing, yes, a one-off event, but we also see Merkel in a poll on Sunday.
Started saying the stabbing one-off event, and then they happen and happen.
Her poll showed that her support for her Conservative Party has dropped 1%, 37 now. So we can see what the effect of allowing more and more migrants into a country is. She wants to help, but the electorate also are very nervous about the idea of millions of people coming into the country, especially from a different continent, a different culture, no matter how tragic their story. And these are the issues that all European leaders are having to deal with now.
No, that all European leaders, and you know, it's a discussion that you and I can have for hours in terms of the concern. Where is it coming from? Is it valid, or is it because the media, you know, purports ISIS and what they can be, et cetera, et cetera? At the end of the day, we see there were a lot of women and children who have nothing to eat on the shores of Europe. But Jonathan Sashidati, such a pleasure to have you with us and shed light on this very, very complicated issue that we shouldn't let go of. Do stay with us. When we get back, something entirely different. No mayhem, no violence, fashion. Because people do live on. So fashion, Tel Aviv Fashion Week has begun. We'll take a slightly closer look and take a bit of a break from all this violence. First, the news. Welcome back. It is still Monday, October 19th, 2015. This is still the morning edition on I-24 News, the place you should be. It's a very bloody, messy morning in the Middle East. It's a very bloody, messy morning in Israel. But life does go on. Life goes on and Israel goes on. And as Israel goes on, it is well known for, be it, not just its violence, its hummus, its beaches, holy sites, but also the fashion industry, believe it or not, in the country is growing at a very fast pace, almost like high-tech. After having covered fashion weeks in Milan, Paris, and London, it is time for us to take a closer look, closer to home, and the Tel Aviv Fashion Week, which was launched yesterday and will be taking place all this week, irrespective of what else goes on in the country. And I am very, very happy to be joined in studio by lifestyle guru, our very own I-24 News Morning Edition lifestyle guru and contributor, Maya Kremer. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
One cannot miss you this morning.
No.
One cannot miss you this morning.
I was a shining star in the street.
Again, it's the kind of... You look like a diamond.
I am a diamond.
You look like a real diamond. And with Maya, with us, I don't want to butcher your name. So tell me.
My name is Nona Shalant.
Okay, Nona Shalant is genius.
Thank you.
Is genius. I mean, that's something itself. Now, Nona, because I want to explain exactly, you market designers and Israeli fashion overseas, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I started a project 5 years ago. It's called House of Nona.
House of Nona. Nice.
And in my house, I bring all the avant-garde Israeli artists.
Yes.
If it's designers, jewelry designers, even sometimes actors, and we do videos together. And dancer, I'm also fascinated with the voguing scene, and it's a very fashionable dance, so I like it a lot.
Yeah, do you know what voguing scene is? Do you know Vogue?
Are we talking about this?
Can we get a little voguing? Can we do a little voguing?
Show us exactly what that means. If you have to stand up for that, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't need music.
You need music.
Sing.
Yeah, but before we're gonna wrap with that. We'll do it together.
Yeah.
But before that, I want to focus a little bit because we have to enter this for our viewers. As we said, lots of violence coming out of the region, but also life continues. Fashion Week, Tel Aviv. Maya Kremer, you were there.
Yes.
Tell us who's there, who came, what's going on.
So last night, it was all of the Shenkar graduates. Shenkar College is one of the top 10 design schools in the world.
Yes.
Yeah. So there was Albert Elbaz, who is known worldwide.
Yeah, I was about to say, I even know. Ami sitting here like this,
nodding his head.
The short guy with the glasses, right?
See,
I know my style.
I mean, he worked for Lanvin, and he designed for Yves Saint Laurent, so that was a big...
As I said, even somebody like me knows who he is.
Yes,
yeah.
And Bar Rafaeli closed the show.
Ooh. Sorry. I'm kidding.
Okay, now you're really here. There she is. Oh, look, it's kind of like my dress.
Wow.
There she is.
Listen, she is
there's
a
all the
beautiful
designs.
woman.
There was the inspiration was Israeli, Israel inspiration. So you see the violin. There's
we saw somebody with a fiddle.
Yes, yeah. So there was a lot of fashion, a lot of people.
And Israeli inspiration, when you look at the clothes, and I'm asking you, that's meaning what? When we saw like prints on a shirt of a violin, or more Middle Eastern, or where is it? Where is the trend going to?
What they had was each designer kind of interpreted how they see Israel.
Right.
So that was basically. That was basically each item was one designer per collection, and yeah.
Right.
And there was a lot of Israeli celebrities walking the runway that represent Israel.
No, it's amazing. And Nona, I have to ask. I love your name. I have to ask you: is it hard to market Israeli fashion overseas? Is there is there a trend overseas in the fashion world, which I'm sure Maya Kramer will attest to, that's very hard to penetrate? Is Israeli fashion becoming some sort of a fad, or is it something that people are noticing?
Israeli designers are very, very talented. I think we have here one of the most, we have the brains for everything. So in fashion, we also give that the interpretation. And no, it's easier to sell it abroad.
Right.
And the responses is from all over the world, especially when I do like a niche in fashion. It's
right.
Avant-garde, and it's gender blender, and it's all together. So
even that sells, because I'm wondering with you, because many will say that it's hard to be Israeli nowadays overseas. That be it in academics, then the boycott movements, is that felt in the fashion industry, or do you think that it's an industry that kind of is barred from boycotting, and you don't feel that people will not approach even the avant-garde or the Israeli fashion because Israelis are having a hard time, to say the least, overseas?
I think the fashion industry is more liberal, and it's more about the art and
not the politics.
I guess there is a little politics, but I don't feel it.
Yeah. And I mean, you pardon me when I have to do this. I have to touch this.
I know.
I've been dying to do this for like the past.
It's very, very Madonna-esque.
It's very Madonna-esque.
It's inspired by Madonna. This is an outfit.
I'm going to ask you to actually stand up, because it's a fabulous outfit, and I hope we can swing this with the director in my ear. Hold on, come to me. Let me see. Here, you're coming to me, and then we'll see what we have. So this is an outfit inspired by
Madonna. Yeah.
By Madonna. And we all remember Vogue. I mean, I think you do too.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have the music, but voguing is what?
Voguing, it's like interpretation of model movements in dance.
In dance, okay.
So it's more like posing. You have like the Madonna...
the framing thing.
I do that when I do selfies. I'm like posing.
Yeah, no, she's posing.
No. It's selfie voguing. That's a new genre. So it's very to be like long, and your hands are like becoming like.
And it's a trend that is overseas, that internationally is now. It's a big. I just have no clue. I have no life, so I don't. Okay.
You should come with me to a voguing.
I definitely want to come with you, but I want to also talk to you, because Maya, I'm stopping you before asking you a question, because I want to talk to Nona about your mother.
Yes, my mother, my whole family is very great and very accepting. This is a project for Reuters.
Right. This is fabulous. Taking your art out of the closet.
Yeah, it's important. That's by Buzz Ratner. He started the project, and he did it with Israeli drag queens, the beginners, the old drag queens. That's funny, because a lot of the drag queens doesn't consider me as a drag queen.
Why?
Because they see like more of a persona, and I don't do like lip sync and
lip sync shows
and it's drag art, but my job is fashion.
No, definitely. And I think that, the fabulous thing, and to me that's heartbreaking, to think that there is so much liberal thinking in Israel on many levels. And we see that in the midst of all the violence that we've been experiencing over the course of the last 3 weeks. But with this taking us back into Israeli fashion week.
Yeah, I want to talk about the gender blender thing, because we talked about that as a trend. And here you have like another look which could have easily been worn by Nona, right?
Yeah. And actually by Danny Barsha,
right.
He's a good friend.
Yeah, he's a good designer. Oh yeah, there's Bar Raffaelli again. So yeah, the gender blender is a real. Oh look, it's me next to Bar Raffaelli.
It's like one of those shows, like who wore it better? Maya, definitely you.
Of course.
Definitely you. Okay, that's a complete. But to conclude, Fashion Week, just in one sentence, when you're looking, because you were there, Maya, yesterday. What is the headline of Fashion Week in Tel Aviv? And designers came, though, from overseas.
Yeah, well,
right?
actually, no. Buyers came from overseas to see the designers, which is great. And they still came. I think someone came from, not the editor, but someone came from Italian Vogue, a bunch of bloggers from all over the world. So people are still coming to the country.
And I think that's the important thing. And Maya and Nona, you were locked in studio with us as we moved to the very patient, very, very patient Ami Kaufman, who is dressed not as fabulously as our guests, but you carry your
But almost. I'm
but
pretty
almost.
close.
You're close. Yeah.
Come on.
The web review, babe. The spiral viral that is the web
viral.
review and not the violence.
A lot of people are sharing videos from Saturday Night Live's the last show this Saturday because it was a really, really great show, and it was a great show for two reasons. First reason, it was emotional, and second reason, it was funny. Let's start with the emotional. The host of the show was Tracy Morgan, who came back to the show after
a terrible accident.
16 months ago. The man was almost killed in an accident, left in a coma, had traumatic brain injury. People didn't know if he was going to come out of it, and here he is hosting the show. Let's see just a few seconds of this from
Let's
his
take a look.
monologue.
I was in a terrible car accident a year ago. It was awful. But it also showed me how much love and support I have in this world. So a couple of months ago, I called Lauren Michaels. He's my co-Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I said, Lauren, when I get back on my feet, I want to come home. And here I am.
Amazing, right?
No, it's
that
beautiful.
is amazing.
It is amazing.
Hosted the show. He did an amazing job. All the skits, the monologue,
No, it's
flawless.
wonderful, wonderful to see. I mean, again, happy stories in some mornings is always good to see.
Yeah.
But that's not the highlight.
The highlight of the show, I guess, was the cold opener of SNL where they did a spoof on the Democratic debate. And the man that played Bernie Sanders was nonetheless probably the best casting I've ever seen in my life, Larry David.
I remind you, folks, that Larry David is the man that, George of Seinfeld.
George of Seinfeld, and of course from Curb Your Enthusiasm, he is an amazing comedian. And people, I think sometimes Bernie Sanders is actually imitating Larry David. I don't know which way it goes, but let's see Larry David do Bernie.
Larry David doing a Bernie Sanders.
I own one pair of underwear. That's it. Some of these billionaires, they got 3, 4 pairs. And I don't have a dryer. I have to put my clothes on the radiator. So who do you want as president? One of these Washington insiders? Or a guy who has one pair of clean underwear that he dries on a radiator?
I gotta tell you, I really think you're right. I think Bernie is actually doing a Larry David.
I know.
He didn't really even change his voice. He just stood there and spoke.
Perfect. It's
like he's perfect.
Perfect casting.
And it's going
amazing.
viral like.
Oh my God, he's getting the internet is just going crazy over it, and he's just getting compliments. It was perfect. He was perfect. He was flawless.
Brilliance. Yes.
Miley Cyrus helped James Franco celebrate his bar mitzvah. But no, James Franco had a bar mitzvah at this very late age.
Wait, stop. Whoa, boom, exactly.
It was part of this thing that Seth Rogen was doing. It was an Alzheimer's fundraiser. Seth Rogen has a fundraiser called Hilarity for Charity. And one of the ideas was
one of us.
It's James Franco. I didn't really check that. I don't know.
Okay,
anyway, they said, okay,
let's
do a bar mitzvah for Jane. But Miley Cyrus, but everybody's talking about what she wore and how she came onto the show. Here it is. This is the Israeli media actually like this as well quite a bit.
I'm sure. The Israeli media are predominantly Israeli media that has a lot of males in it. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
She's taking a big risk over there.
Yeah.
I've already seen a lot of memes actually put that picture of Miley Cyrus on the flag, Israeli flag.
No, I was about to say, they should redesign it with that. I think maybe we'll have coexistence.
Yeah.
Put Miley Cyrus on the Israeli flag and peace will be upon
Peace will come upon.
Peace will come about.
Miley will be,
Yes, and?
Here's a viral video of a young YouTube star, a transgender man. His name is Jamie Raines. He's 21. But when he was 18, he started taking testosterone. What he did was he started taking a picture just about every day, and you can see the really amazing transformation they did. It's a very emotional video. Let's take a few moments at it. First of all, you saw the facial hair as well come out, but the cheekbones became very straight, chiseled. Thank you. That's the word actually, and really interesting transfer. And the video has gone totally viral. Very emotional. He's getting a lot of support, and it's just a nice thing, I think.
You're amazed
nice
that
idea.
the world is becoming slightly more liberal?
Yes, that's happening.
It's happening.
When I see a transformation from female to male, it's almost surprising for me that they really want to be like really butch and straight actor.
Yeah.
It's like it's funny.
Because you're feeling the opposite.
Yeah, when I do my transformation, for me it's more of the makeup. So I'm thinking about how to be more fabulous. And they're like, I don't want makeup, I want hair.
Ami's fabulous.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
There is that. But Ami, moving along.
Yeah, one more. An amazing photo that was bought probably for just only $2 by a collector named Ranji Guicharo, and it might be a photo of the amazing Billy the Kid, and it's probably worth over $3 million. He bought it for $2. Let's take a look at it.
Yes,
this is a picture of him, and we have another pic which is kind of a close-up. There have been a company studied this photo for over a year and has come to the conclusion that yes, this is Billy the Kid, that man on the left. This is the only second photo that we have of him. There is one photo owned by one of the Koch brothers. This is another one that is has not yet been bought, is insured for over $3 million. That is Billy the Kid in the late 19th century.
Now I'm
bought for $2.
Ami. I'm going to stop you, Ami. Of course, we have some breaking news coming in right now from Israeli Channel 2. The attack yesterday in Beersheba, the terrorist who perpetrated the very gruesome attack in Beersheba that we saw of coming in, shooting at civilians, grabbing a gun from a 19-year-old soldier named Omri Levy, who was also killed in this attack, as well as an Eritrean migrant. That terrorist, that name that is coming out now, supposedly from the Beersheba, is an Israeli citizen from Hawara. That is a Bedouin. Settlement. But do stay with us. The news coming up. Good morning, I-24 News Morning Edition on this October 19th. As we said, breaking news coming in from Beersheba, gruesome terror attack yesterday in Beersheba bus station in Israel, where an assailant, a terrorist, comes in with a gun, takes over a young soldier, 19-year-old Omri Levy, takes his gun away from him, proceeds to shoot him dead and bystanders. This is an attack also in which an Eritrean migrant, refugee, or asylum seeker, whichever way you want to call it, was shot by mistake by a security guard, mistaken to be also a terrorist. Then he was beaten to death by an angry crowd. But we have information coming out right now about the actual terrorist who perpetrated this attack. Let's go straight live to Tal Heinrich, I-24 News correspondent, standing by in Beersheba. Tal Heinrich, what do we know? What is the information coming out about this terrorist from yesterday in the Beersheba attack?
So, hi, Yael. New details now confirm that the attacker, the perpetrator of this terror act from last night, was a person, an Israeli citizen from the town, the Arab town Khura, which means that it was an Israeli citizen. He's from a Bedouin descent. And this, maybe above all, reflects this complex situation of the Bedouin community here in Israel, because as we know, as I said before, the chief officer who shot down the Eritrean asylum seeker, he is also from a Bedouin descent. So
no, and I think you touched on the right point here. I want to remind the international audience, as you said, a Bedouin, but of Israeli citizenship. Bedouins also serve in the Israeli military several times. We don't know all the details about this assailant, about this terrorist, but as you said, information coming out, he's from Khura, a Bedouin Israeli citizen, and the security guard in that station who neutralized both him and mistakenly the refugee and the asylum seeker was also Bedouin. Tal, you are in Beersheba, tensions are high, security there this morning as all these bits and details are coming out. What are you seeing?
First of all, we're hearing certain complaints because the security, I mean, people don't search the bags and the belongings of the people walking in. The security forces, maybe as they should have. But as we know, when an assailant wants to commit a terror act, maybe nothing can stop him at a certain point. But you also don't see an X-ray scanner.
And not only that,
like
I'm
you
asking
see
you
in the
because
Jerusalem Central bus station.
And I'm just saying because there are soldiers that were walking behind you. It's a very, very central bus station. 4 young soldiers with their guns. As we remind people, the assailant yesterday grabbed the gun away from a soldier in that bus station that you're at, which is a hub for young Israeli soldiers to get to their bases back home, whatnot. So a tricky situation all around that, time will tell if it can even be resolved. I want to thank you. Tal, I want to thank you from Beersheba this morning with the information that we have. As we said, the assailant from yesterday, the terrorist, a Bedouin Israeli citizen. That's information trickling out now from the village of Hua. Time to move back to life, which we try to do, or everybody tries to do when you live in this region, and it's becoming harder and harder. But I am with Shai Ringel this morning in studio, both Shai Ringel and Yoav Borovich. Shai Ringel is here to speak about tech, about the tube, which is hard to really concentrate on when he's wearing a T-shirt of Ron Burgundy. But, yes, stay classy, Shai Ringel. What do you have for us?
Okay, let's talk about millionaires in YouTube. Yeah, Forbes.
They don't have the problems that we little minions in the Middle East have.
They have other problems, Okay. It's more self-absorbed.
Yes.
Forbes published a very interesting list about the millionaires YouTube make. People who vlog and have YouTube channels, and they make millions of dollars a year. They make more money than Hollywood stars, some of them. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And it's time we talk about some of them. Who we see now is PewDiePie.
PewDiePie. Let's take a look at PewDiePie. Okay, PewDiePie is who?
This is Felix.
Hey, how's it going, bros? My name is PewDiePie. Today we're playing the best game of all time. It's called Tokyo Jungle. Let's begin. Okay, all right. It's basically animals in Tokyo. Here we go. We start off as a little bitch, but don't you worry. By the end of this video, we will probably still be a bitch, but look how fabulous.
Okay, this guy's a millionaire.
Yeah, he makes $12 million. He made $12 million last year. He made $7 million the year before, which means that
from that.
Yeah, from making what we call let's play videos. They are huge. It's a huge market, and he's on top of that market. He's actually really smart and really funny. And he has a lot of people following him. He has more subscribers than Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber combined.
And I just want to say, this is a man who just made $12 million out of basically superimposing a little dog on a screen.
He plays video games for a living. That's what he does. He plays video games and curse. And curse. But he's really smart and he's really nice, and the girls love him. And yeah, 12 million. It's really nice for him. I'm really happy.
Yeah, really, I mean, seriously, video game geeks of the world rejoice. And
let's talk about fashion vloggers. Michelle Phan. She made $3 million last year, which is not a lot compared to the others,
12 million.
But it is a lot when you understand that what she does all day is like make this video, which is how to take the best selfie. How to take the best selfie that so you can look fabulous. She even has her own book.
How to make the best selfie? That's a book. Okay.
She's a fashion vlogger. She has very good tips.
Right. Yeah, and we have a little bit of Okay, let's we have a little bit of what she does. That voodoo that she does. Okay, let's take a look.
How you doing? Tip number 1: find your light. Let's say if you turn your back on the light, it gives you a more backlit look, which will make your photo look softer and more mysterious. However, if you want your face to look brighter, turn towards the main light source. For me, it's this window. So go ahead and take a test shot.
Because we also have Yoav Borovich in studio with us, I have to say, and Yoav Borovich, other than, like myself, I'm horrified. We're going to hell, don't you think?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult talking about other topics these days. Yeah, for sure.
It is difficult, but the world does go on, and that's that is the problem with this. The world goes on, and sadly, I think when we're seeing also attacks being in the Middle East that are being splattered over the internet, and I think you'll agree with me on that. Yeah. It's the power. If people can make 12 million, 3 million on Facebook, on the internet, the power that it has also in an incidence of violence, as we've seen in the Middle East, is something that we haven't begun to reckon with, I think, as a society all around the world, and that's the frightening thing. Yes, Shai Ringel, what else?
Okay, more millionaires. Smash Brothers.
Yes.
They are brothers. They even released a movie this year. They have their own movie, and they made $8.5 million.
California Boys Pocket. Wow, 6.5 million with Smosh. Eight, not 6.5.
Yeah.
8.
Microphone guy, where'd the microphone go? I think it's in that boy's ass.
Steve YouTube.
Oh my
Dude,
word.
that's you.
I wanna be the master.
Where did the microphone go? Oh, it's really deep in there. If Anna sees this video, it's gonna remind her how much of a loser I used to be. All we have to do is get the video removed from YouTube. Hi there. Is Mr. YouTube available to see us?
Hey, you're the backflip microphone guy. Where'd
The
the
power
microphone
of
go?
the web, folks. Those guys, those kids make 8 million?
They made 8 million. What's interesting about the Smosh Brothers and the movie they released this year is that it's all backed by YouTube, Google. Google puts a lot of money into them. They put a lot of money in a lot of those stars. PewDiePie he grew up in Sweden and now he moved to London because he has his own studio now. Google backs them up. They put a lot of money in order for lists like that to exist.
I'm going to actually parallel this. Google is the new studios as Hollywood was.
Yeah, yeah.
And these are their talents.
Yeah, exactly.
And they maintain them that way. The studio system, be it from the networks or Hollywood, has moved into the internet, and Google is the big corporation.
But Google are not the one to make money out of them yet. YouTube is still not profitable.
Right.
They put too much money for those stars to be stars.
To be stars on that. Time will tell, though. And let me assure you, they have a feeling they will find a way to make a lot of money out of it.
Probably.
Shai Ringel, time to move to Yoav Borovich, because as we said, it's hard to speak, Yoav. I agree with you about certain things, but the world does go on. And you're here in the capacity and under the hat of our sports contributor, things I know nothing about. We have Ronaldo. What happened with Ronaldo?
Ronaldo just scored his 324th goal for Real Madrid. He did it in 6 years, just a little more of 6 years. And it means 50 goals per season, which is totally unprecedented in the world of football. Just an unbelievable record. He broke the record of legendary Raúl, their striker who played there for 16 years. They didn't stop scoring goals for 16 years. Ronaldo did it in only 7 years.
In 7 years. And we have a report. Let's take a look.
The CR7 legend has done it again. On Saturday, Cristiano Ronaldo became the leading scorer in Real Madrid's history with 324 goals.
Being part of a team like Real Madrid with those players that play by my side obviously gives me more opportunities to win, and I thank them again, because without them it would be impossible.
The 30-year-old Portuguese striker needed a mere 310 matches across 7 seasons to overtake his predecessor Raúl's tally of 323 goals amassed in 741 games over 16 years.
I am not satisfied. I always want more. I know I am the only one who has 4 European scoring titles, but I want more. I want a 5th one and a 6th one, if possible.
As he enters his 4th decade, it seems CR7 is not slowing down. On the contrary, his appetite for goals grows larger by the match.
So Ronaldo, the star, the phenomena that he is, you see me searching for words because tennis is my sport, but no, fascinating nonetheless. Premier League, tell me.
Yeah, let's move. Ronaldo, before moving to Spain, played in the Premier League, but he moved his talents to Madrid. And in the Premier League, what we do have is the best league in the world. Very fascinating. What happened there during the weekend was just, so many goals. Again, going back to, people around the world, they get excited about stupid things like goals and football matches. Here we don't have this luxury.
I was about to say, we should be so lucky. No,
yeah,
really,
we should
be so lucky. Yeah.
And Manchester City are leading the table in the Premier League. They won 5-1, and they did it without their 2 best players. It was a very, very impressive showing. Manchester United also beat Everton away 3-0.
Right.
And also Arsenal beat Watford 3-0. So we have a very, very tight Premier League top of the table with the two Mancunian teams, City and United. Arsenal, also Spurs, Liverpool are pretty disappointing, although they have the new coach, Jurgen Klopp, the German coach who's doing, garnering a lot of headlines, but still was not able to win. It was 0-0.
0-0. And what are we to look at in the coming week when it comes to the Premier League? Anything we need to be
Actually, I'll be there during the weekend. I'll be at a game in London, Arsenal against Everton. I'm very excited about that.
No, I'm very excited. We're finally getting reports from the field because I'm going to call you.
We'll do that.
Okay, I am going to call you.
Just to show you, the prices of tickets, it's just unbelievable. You need to pay over $200 for a ticket. And these are not for good seats, just because people from all over the world want to go watch these games. It's a totally global game today. It's not just a British game.
Right. I'm glad you're going to get a break from the region. And as we are summing up this show, we do have news and more information coming in about the terrorist who perpetrated the attack in Beersheba yesterday. Reports are saying that the terrorist that perpetrated the attack is Mohanad Al-Akubi, 21-year-old resident of Hura, that is the village of Hura. That's according to the police, the Israeli police. Information coming out this morning. Over the night, Israeli police special units and as well as internal security Israeli members have arrested a family member of that terrorist that is suspected of actually helping him carry out this attack. We have information, as we said, that is trickling in throughout the morning about this assailant, this terrorist, who perpetrated the horrific attack in the Beersheba bus station late last night, an attack that saw him, as we said, 21-year-old Mohanad Al-Akubi, a Bedouin Israeli civilian from the village of Hura, supposedly moved to Israel. Again, these is all information that's coming in the last several minutes from Israeli media, being confirmed by police. But supposedly, he was also assisted by a member of his family. We're still looking at footage of the terrible attack. He took over a soldier. He took the gun from the soldier, shot him dead, continued to shoot several bystanders, was basically neutralized by an Israeli security guard who supposedly was also Bedouin. Very heightened tensions here in Israel over the course of the last week. I think nothing really brings the point home as the attack from yesterday perpetrated by this Israeli citizen, supposedly a Bedouin with the name 21-year-old Mohanad Al-Akubi. Stay with I-24 News throughout the day. We'll give you more information about this story, and hopefully we'll have a quiet day. That was it for our show this morning. Thank you for being with us.